Good morning, good morning. Hope you're all doing well today. Of course, it's not appropriate to sing on YouTube, but I can't resist. Okay, if you haven't got a small glass, a big jug of water, a bowl, and probably a towel, and a calculator, and you want to join in with everything we do today, this is a great time to go and grab them. If you've got those things or you just don't want to use them, that's absolutely fine. We've got a question here to have a think about. Well, it's actually sort of 3 questions. The idea is to think when to charge and when not to charge, and you've got 3 different situations to think about. All else fails, you can head over to Facebook and say a little hi if you want to, and you have Facebook. Don't worry if that's not for you or you don't want to. But you are welcome to do that. You're also welcome to do things like hit like and subscribe, sign up to the Maths Mob, any of those things, whilst you're waiting for a couple of minutes just for me to get my stuff together. We will be looking at percentage of an amount today. Okay, I'm nearly there. Okay, there we go. Are we ready? Are we ready, guys? Good morning, Maths Mob! It is Friday. It's Friday. I love Fridays. I just love them. I am Ruth. This is Joyful Maths with Ruth. You have tuned in to my live GCSE maths lesson where we cover Foundation GCSE. Content-wise, can't cram the higher into one lesson a week, even over a couple of years. But we'll also cover Functional Skills 1, Functional Skills 2 as well, hopefully by the end of this year, like academic year, so like by June, July sort of time, we'll have covered all of the Functional Skills 1, Functional Skills 2 as well, because as it happens, maths all interlinks and it all comes up in all of the different assessments. So this is maths lessons for those people that really want to work towards qualifications from home educators. Good morning and welcome. We are looking at percentage of an amount today, and I asked you I sort of asked you one question about 3 different situations to have a little think about to start with. I asked, when would you charge and when would you not charge? So I maybe should have been a bit more explicit. There was a picture of an iPad on there. And I posed 3 different situations and I wondered what your answers would be, whether you would choose to charge or not charge in these 3 different situations, or if you had any questions about these situations, because that is important too. People always say maths is about the answer. Unfortunately, when you're doing your assessment, it is about the answer because that's what you're going to be marked on. Actual real life maths is all about the questions, thinking about the questions, and then how to answer the questions. So if you've got 45% battery and you want to watch a film, what do you reckon? Do you think you're going to charge that iPad or leave it? That was the one that on Facebook on Tuesday got the most questions. People were more confident on the other 2. That one got a lot of questions. The second one was you have 8% battery and you want to watch a YouTube short. The third one was you have 80% battery and you want to play a few hours of Minecraft. So people were fairly confident that with 8% battery, they'd manage to watch a YouTube short. No need to charge in that situation. The other 2, there were some questions about how long the battery life would last. So is there amount of time for 1% of battery to go? And that is a really good point because we've got different devices in our house and the battery lasts for different amounts of time. And that's really, really valid to think about, really important to think about. So part of it is to do with that, isn't it? How long the battery life is going to last. But part of it is also how long you're going to be using the device for. So a film, relatively long, probably at least an hour and a half, maybe up to 2-3 hours long, 45% battery. If you've got a really good device, it'll do it for you. But for other devices, it's not even quite halfway charged, maybe a little bit risky. 80% battery, we've got quite a lot of battery there. You're likely to get a good chunk of Minecraft time. Whether it gives you a few hours, we don't know for sure. We definitely need more details here, don't we? Okay, so let's have a look at percentage in a bit more detail. I asked you if you wanted to bring a jug of water and an empty glass. And I suggested a bowl, but actually I didn't bother with a bowl. I'm just going to tip, because I'm going to have to fill my glass up and then tip some water out. So I'm just going to tip it back into my jug. I made a mess the other day. So I've also brought a towel because it was helpful. So I'm going to ask you to fill your glass to different percentages, roughly, if you've got one with you. Otherwise, you could just watch me make a mess. So the first one is 100%. I'll turn it around so you can actually see that written out as well, because this is helpful for exam prep. It's actually seeing what it looks like when it's written out. So can you fill your glass? I'm going to do it sneaky, secretly behind you. Can you fill it to 100% full? So 100% full of water, I should say. 100% full of water. And I've realised that in itself is a bit of a challenge, actually. Dear. Like, I'm a bit more nervous about this today because my husband's at home and it's like, oh, stop drawing on everything. Stop throwing water all over the electronics. But he's not watching this, I don't think, so we're good. Okay, 100%. 100% full. What did you do there? Did you fill your glass all the way up? It's a difficult one. So I've tried to fill my glass. Can you see? I've tried to fill it all the way up to represent 100%. Now, there is a tiny little gap at the top, so it's not quite 100% full. But the difficulty with this is it's a real life situation. And of course, she's spilling water over her laptop. I'm just going to put it away from the laptop. That'll be helpful. It's a real life situation. So, like, these things it's really, really hard to have it absolutely perfectly. So, for example, my phone, I put it on charge when I go to bed every night. I have this thing where it limits it to 80%. When I wake up, it's never 80%. It's always around 79% because it's lost teeny tiny bit of charge whilst I was sleeping, because once it got to its full percentage, it starts using its battery a bit. So, real life situations and all that, it's never going to be perfect. Right, next challenge then. So next, is this a challenge? I'm going to stick with the word challenge. I like it. Can you fill your glass up to just 1% full this time? Just 1% full. So again, I'm going to show you the picture with the written 1% on. whilst I sneaky behind her do it, I'm so glad I'm not doing this pouring back in front of the camera. Yes, that was so much better than the other day. Oh, did you hear that? I think sometimes the noise of me pouring gives a sneaky clue, doesn't it? It gives a little bit of a clue to how much water I'm pouring in. I'm actually going to have to pour some out. The 1% one's the one I found the hardest out of a lot, actually. What do we reckon for 1%? So we're not looking for exact here. I know it's hard, isn't it? Because it's a hard balance, because real life versus exams. So yeah, if you're finding 1% of something in an exam, you need exact. But here, we're not going to get that. So 1%, hopefully you poured most of your water out, and can you see I've got just a teeny tiny amount of water in the bottom. The reality is that's probably more than 1%, because if I took that amount and put it in 100 times, because percentage is out of 100, I don't think I'd fit that in 100 times. So it probably is a bit more than 1%. But it's a good estimate, isn't it? That's 1%, a good estimate. What about from that 1%? Could you go to do 2%? What would 2% look like? What would 2% look like? We'll assume your 1% is good. You're happy with your 1%. Yeah. So I'm not going to alter my 1%. I'm going to try and make it look like 2%. You might hear a little clue here. Oh, just laughing at the fact that I'm now wet because I'm such a clumsy person. It's one of my favourite qualities of myself, is just how spectacularly clumsy I can be, even when I'm expecting it. It happens in ways that I can't predict, even at 38. So 2%, I'm hoping you've got a bit more in your glass. In fact, I tried to double the amount I had. I tried to double that 1%. So it's still tiny. It's still a tiny amount, because out of 100%, 2% is tiny. I'd need to fit that in 50 times. But it's double what it was. It's double 1%. What about 50%? What would that look like? What would 50% look like? What do we reckon? 50% full of water. I'm being really careful with my words here, because your glass is full. It's just not full of water. It's always full because we're not in a vacuum. It's got stuff in it. I'm just gonna... There's bits of your clothes that are okay to get wet, isn't there? And it looks okay. And there's bits of your clothes you don't want to get wet, because people will assume they got wet in a way you really don't want them to think it got wet. And that is a learning curve. Oh dear. I've got pattern trust on, it's okay. So 50% full. I've gone for, I tried to go halfway. It's not a brilliant halfway, is it? That's not a brilliant halfway. I need to pour a little bit back. Let's try that. There we go. About halfway. So 50%. Hopefully we've got about the same amount that's got water in versus the amount that's full of air. Yeah. So about halfway for 50%. So going from 50%, what about 25%? What would that look like? Lots of people on Facebook were using fractions to describe these to me, actually. So they said 50% was about half full. And then 25%, they used a different fraction for 25%. And I won't give it away, but I'll tell you in a second. 25%. So people on Facebook spotted the link between 25% and 50% was that we were half in the amount. So hopefully halved the amount that was in your glass. So we halved it. So now that should fit in. That amount of water would fit into my glass about 4 times, hopefully. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to say yes. So they described that as a quarter. So yeah, 25% is the same as a quarter. 25 out of 100. You can simplify it to a quarter. Okay, so then the next one I said was 75%. What would that look like? What would 75% look like? what would 75? It's got to be 75% full of water. %75 full of water. Again, can be helpful to link this back to the previous one. Can you link it back to that 25%? So I'm actually I'm going to be brave here. I'm going to do this one live on camera. Even with my clumsy hands, I'm going to be brave and do it live on camera. So the reason is I wanted to show you this. And I've learned something new today, not related to maths, but you might enjoy this. You can get a permanent marker off of a glass, because I didn't have another pen that I could use the other day. So I drew on permanent marker and I thought, well, oh, well, that's on there forever. But I got it off. That's quite cool, isn't it? So that's 25% full. So I've got a line there representing where 25% full is. 75% is going to be, some people noticed it's 3 lots of that, so 3/4. Another way I think of it is 75% is kind of the opposite to 25%, in that 25% is a quarter full, 75% will be a quarter empty. So I'm going to transfer that size up here, put a little mark there, and fill it up to there. So this amount that was full is now going to be the same space that's empty at the top. I don't know if that makes sense to people or not, but it's basically 25 plus 25 plus 25. So we end up with like 3/4. So if I fill up to around, yeah, see, practiced, it's got better. Up to the 75%. So not quite full. And actually quite good for your battery, apparently. It keeps the battery life better if you don't quite charge it full all the time, is what I've learnt. The last one to have a go at then was 10%. What about 10%? What would that look like if you filled your glass with 10% water? What would that look like? So it looks quite low again. What I'm finding difficult here is I know 10% is 10 lots of 1%. But in this real life situation, they're both pretty low. I've gone for 10% being about that. Can you see where my 25% mark was? It's lower than that. In fact, it's less than half of that. So I know it's less than my 25%. But my 1%, my 1% was just too big. I've got to fit that in 10 times, because 10 lots of 10 gives me 100. Probably this is slightly too big as well, but we get the idea. 10% is significant. It's quite a bit lower than 25%, quite a bit lower than a quarter. And it's got to fit into here 100 times, but it's going to be a lot bigger than 1%. So 1% was like a tiny amount at the bottom. That 10% was quite a chunk more than that. Okay, we can pop that to one side now. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at some numbers now and how that applies to when you're actually asked questions in an exam situation. So percentage is out of 100. If we've got something that is full, it is 100%. So this is 100 square here. I've got 10 blocks going across, 10 blocks going up. And if you do 10 times 10, you get 100. So this full amount is 100 square. If I want to find 1% of something, you can see I'm colouring in one of those here. So this blue bit is representing 1%. What I'd like you to think about now is what mathematical operation takes us from 100% to 1%. I've written this in a couple of different ways. 1% is 1 out of 100. What mathematical operation will take me from 100% to 1%? If you were to put something into your calculator, what would you put in? I'm going to be quiet for a second so you can have a little think about that. Okay, 1 out of 100, I'll turn you around. 1 out of 100 was a little clue there. The fractions can really help with this because 1 out of 100 actually means we're doing a division here. We can write 1 out of 100 like this, like a fraction, 1 over 100. That is equivalent to 1%. So we can say that is the same as 1%. Same thing written in 2 different ways. And 1 out of 100 is another way of saying 1 divided by 100. You're about to fall off the table there. So when we're finding 1%, we want to divide the full amount by 100. So whatever it is, whatever the full amount is, say it was £742, we would want to divide that by 100 to get 1%. Okay, let's have a look at another one. What about 10% then? So I've got 10% represented here in blue, which is 1 full bar, because that's 10 of those squares. 10% is 10 out of 100. What mathematical operation would take me from 100% to 10%? What mathematical operation would take me from 10% to 100%? Okay, so before I turn you around, the clue is this bar here. This is really helpful. So pictures are super helpful when we talk about numbers. This bar could fit in here 10 times. There's 10 of these columns going down. So here, if we want to find 10% of something, we're going to divide it by 10. If we wanted to go from the fraction, 10 out of 100 can be written as 10 over 100. But we can actually simplify that fraction. If you've done simplifying fractions before, it becomes 1 out of 10 because we divide both of them by 10. Essentially, this means dividing by 10. Okay, so if we're wanting to find 10%, we want to divide by 10 because 10 fits into 100 10 times. If you've got that 10%, then it might be helpful to think of if you've got that 10%, how would you then go on to find 30%? How would you go on to find 30%? So I've represented that here. Can you see I've coloured in 3 of these bars? What would you do? What mathematical operation would you do to find 30%? So we need 3 of these now. Because we need 3 of them, we are going to, you could do it a couple of different ways, actually. You could get the 10% and add 10% together 3 times. So 10% plus 10% plus 10% would give us 30%. Another way is multiplying. Multiplying is just a quick way to do addition. So we could times by 3. So we could take that 10%, multiply it by 3. Okay, let's look at 50%. What would we do to find 50% of a whole? So again, I've got a picture here. You might have a couple of different ways to do this again. No way is better than another way. It's good to explore multiple ways though. So if we wanted to find 50% of something, you can see I've shaded in 5 of these columns this time. Or you might think of it as a fraction, maybe, comparing these two, the bit that's blue versus the bit that's pink. What mathematical operation would you do to go from 100% to 50%? So on Facebook, I had a couple of different answers for this. One was that people spotted that half of it's blue and half of it's pink. So lots of people said half it. Another way of saying half something is divide it by 2 because it's 1 over 2. 1 over 2, that fraction means half. So one way is to half it. So you're dividing by 2. The other way is to think of 10% and say, just the same as with 30%, we went 10, 20, 30, we multiplied by 3. To get to 50%, we could go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, multiply it by 5. Both of those absolutely fab. Okay, I'm going to give you a matching exercise now. If you've got the workbook, you could do this in the workbook. If you haven't, you could just think it in your head. You could have a look at it, or you could just do a quick write these down if you want to join in like that. So on one side, we've got some percentages. So I've got 100%, 10%, 50%, 1%. And the other side, I've got some amounts of money, £36, £360, £3.60 and £180. Using what we've just talked about, you're welcome to use a calculator if you want to for this. I want you to find these percentages of £360. So if you think 100% of £360 is £3.60, you would join these two together. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a minute to have a think about that. And then we'll have a look at these. Okay. This isn't about speed, so don't panic if you're not finished these at all. Time for practice. Do practice outside of these. So I should say that's a really important thing. In these lessons, I'm focusing on understanding. You absolutely need to practice questions for a qualification. And I linked to all of that in the workbook. So you'll find links to places where you can practice questions. You can find videos about practice questions and exam questions as well. So all of that's in the workbooks. Don't panic if you've not got all of these right now. It's not a problem. I'm just doing it to fit into the space of the lesson. So you could just listen for some of this. That's fine. Okay, so 100% means the full amount. So if I want the full amount of £360, it is going to be £360. Okay. If I want 10%, 10 fits into 100 10 times. So that means I'm going to divide by 10. So I want to do 360 divided by 10, and that gives me £36 in this instant. If I want 50%, 50% is half of the whole, half of 100%. So I would do 360 and half it, or another way of saying that is divide by 2, which gives me £180. The last one, 1%, 1% we have to divide by 100. So we're going to take this 360 and divide by 100, and that gives me £3.60. There's a lesson on dividing and getting decimals earlier on if you want to go over that a little bit more as well. Okay, so you can find that on my website on the replays. So those are the ones. Once you've got, I'll show you how it looks on the matching exercise. So if you did it on the actual worksheet, we've got 100% matches to 360, 10% to 36, 50% to 180, and 1% to £3.60. Once you can find those 4 percentages, you are away. You can find any percentage you want to by combining those. And we're going to have a look at that now. So on functional skills 1, 2, and GCSE, you won't necessarily always, you could have a calculator or not have a calculator for these questions. At GCSE, you always have a calculator. So you can always check these on a calculator. However, they can phrase the question as, can you show this? So they'll give you the answer and they want you to show the working out that you would do. So you still need to be able to understand these bits of working out. Okay, so we're going to look at links from 1%, 10%, 50%, and 100%, finding any other percentage. I'm going to focus in on non-calculator to start with, and then I'm going to give you some calculator hacks afterwards as well. This is really useful to write down. I really recommend having, if you've not got the workbook, a blank piece of paper or a whiteboard or some biggish space where you can write these down, because finding the links can be really, really helpful. We're going to look at £240 here. So we're going to start off with £240, and I'd like you to have a go at finding 100%, 50%, 10%, and 1% of £240. And you can just write those next to them. Do have the percentages written down too, because we're going to use those. Okay, we're going to use those. I'm going to give you a minute to have a go at that and do that bit. Okay, so again, it's not about rushing. If you need a little bit more time on this, that's not a problem. You've got loads of time. You can practice in your own time at any point. I'm just focusing on the understanding today. So glare is my enemy with this. So I'm just going to have a moment of getting this up without any glare, hopefully. Hopefully you can see that all right. Should we angle that down a little bit? Right, fab. So let's have a look at this. I purposely chose £240 actually because it's a nice divisible number. We're going to have, let's make this one look like an actual one, shall we? I've got a feeling I'm going to send my coffee flying if I'm not careful. Well, let's just move those out of the way. So 100% of £240 is the whole amount. So I would just write £240 there. If I want 50%, I'm going to half it. So half of 240 is £120. You can probably tell I've done this a few times. So I know these may be a little bit quicker than other people, but don't panic if you are taking a bit more time to work these out. 10%, I would need to divide this by 10. That's going to give me £24. And for 1%, I would divide 240 by 100. Now, a little bit of a trick here. If you struggle with dividing numbers that don't divide exactly into 100, look at, just ignore sort of the 40 and think of it as 200 and think, right, 200 divided by 100 would be 2. So we know this is going to be like £2 something. And we know that these digits are all, they're like glued together. So it's going to go 240. So that gives me the idea that it's £2.40. I'm going to write that one below because otherwise my hair is going to get in the way. So £2.40 for 1%. That's a bit of a tip there. Okay, so from there, what we're going to do is we're going to use these percentages and links between them to try and find some other percentages. So what I'd like you to have a go at now is from there, could you find, for example, 25%? I've suggested using the 50%, but you might want to use a different one. Could you also find 20%? I've suggested using the 10%, but again, you can do it different ways. Could you find 5%? Could you use the 1% to find 2%? Could you use the 100% to find 90% or 150%? So again, this is just using these amounts that we've already got and using links between them. You might use different links to me, and we'll talk a little bit about that after you've had a go at this. I'll just turn, what I'm going to do is turn you around so you can see because I'm wobbling about with that a little bit. It's probably not helpful to you. I'll turn you around to a less wobbly version. Here you go. Have a little look at this. So here we go. Here's my less wobbly version. And you'll feel free to explore other percentages you could find as well using this. Okay, so I've suggested some links using the arrows, but you absolutely don't have to do exactly the same as me. So you might only do like a handful of these in the time that I give. Don't worry about that. That's fine. It's all good. Although it's valuable near to your exam, practicing doing things within the time frame of the actual test. When you're trying to understand something fully, time pressure is not your friend. You want to focus on understanding over time to start with. Okay, I'm going to turn you around. We'll have a little look at some of these and how you might have got them. My stand extended way too far just then. It surprised me. Okay, let's have a little look at some of these. Hopefully the glare isn't too bad and my arm can sustain holding this up. What am I doing? Why is the angle not working for me? There we go. That's it. I have to move everything like in the opposite direction. My spatial awareness is rubbish. So if you've got, let's start with the 10%. If you've got 10% and you want 20%, you would double it. You would want twice as much. So I would take the £24 and I would double it to get £48. Similarly, if I want to go from 10% to 5%, I want to half it. So I would half this amount to give me £12. So I'm half in the 24. I'm going back to the 10% each time. To get 25%, I could take this 50% and say, well, I'd just half that, which is going to give me £60. But you may have also spotted I could have taken this 20 and 25% and added those two together. Because when I add those two together, I get 25% as well. And it also gives me £60. It should give exactly the same value, no matter how you do it. When I've got 1% and I want 2%, I can double it to get 2%. So I end up with £4.80. And here, if I've got 100%, it's not often you go over 100%. It seems a bit counterintuitive to go over a whole, but it can work in terms of like money when you're increasing, when you're getting more money in your bank through interest, for example. That is a time where you might go over 100%. So if I'm going over 100%, I can just add it on. So I can look at my 50%, add it onto my 100%, combine those together to get 150%. So I'm going to get £360 here. Similarly, for 90%, I can look at the 10%, which was £24, and take it off my original amount. What is 240 take away? 240 take away 24 is going to give me £216. So we can keep doing that to find different percentages. Once you've got 1%, 100%, 50%, and 10%, you can combine them in various different ways to find other percentages. There's no right or wrong way. There's only the way that makes sense to you. There is, well, actually, no, there's not only the way that makes sense to you. It's okay to use the way that makes sense to you, is my point here. Okay. Right, I said I would give you some calculator hacks. So that sort of thing, with a number like that, you absolutely need to be able to do without a calculator. I've purposely put a question on here where it's like, bleh, horrible, without a calculator, that we're going to have a little look at. You don't need to be able to do this for Functional Skills 1. You only need to be able to find multiples of 5% for Functional Skills 1. Functional Skills 1 and 2 are also odd in the terms that they give you like a calculator to use on the screen. But I'm going to show you an actual calculator here. Where have I put? I stupidly tidied. I tidied. Why was I thinking that would be a good idea? I can't find anything when I tidy. Okay, so two little hacks I'm going to give you. One is going to be called the percentage button, because it's literally a button on scientific calculators that does percentage for you, which is great if you're just being asked to calculate a percentage, but not if you're being asked to show how to do it. Okay, so the percentage button, it'll be on different places on different calculators. I'm going to show you mine. You actually, this calculator is not one you want for GCSE, because I think it does too much, but a Class Whiz calculator, I think it's version 85, stuff that starts with the 85, but definitely look up on the specification for the actual exam you're taking, which calculators are okay and which aren't. Most Casio ones have got this in the same place. I would recommend Casio calculators hugely because they work in a particular way, and it's the most common type. So you can see here I've got a little percentage sign above my answer button there. Can you see that? It's yellow. That means if I press that, it won't do percentage. I have to press a different button first, which on my calculator is called shift. So I have to press the shift button first to bring up that percentage button. So if I press this on, and I'll show you, if I press shift and then I press the answer button, it brings up the percentage button. And if you've got a scientific calculator, you should be able to find that button somewhere on your calculator to do. So if I wanted to find something like 42% of £14.20, okay? 42% of £14.20. What I would do, I'm going to press on, I would write the percentage in first. So I would write 42, and then I want the percent button. So I'm going to press shift and then my percent button like that. So that's the 42%. I put a multiply in. Multiply in maths is the same as of in English in lots of mathematical situations. So we're doing 42%, then multiply, and then I put the amount. So £14.72. Press the equals button. Because this is going to give me a decimal answer on a scientific calculator, it's most likely to show the answer as a fraction. Now, on my calculator, there's this SD button I can press to give it me as a decimal, and then I can write it out in terms of money. I would need to round that to 2 decimal places in this case. On the newest ClassWiz calculators, they don't have this SD button. You have to press Shift and then another button, which I've forgotten right now. But look up the settings for your own calculator to be able to do that, to turn from a decimal to from a fraction to a decimal and back again. Okay. So that is the first hack, the percentage button. You literally just type in what they're asking for, remembering that of means multiply mathematically. The other way to do it using a calculator is to find 1% first, and then you can find any other percentage. Because if you've got 1% and you want 74%, you would just multiply by 74. If you've got 1% and you want 5%, you would just multiply by 5. If you've got 1% and you want 83%, 83.25%, you would multiply by 83.25. And we know how to find 1%. We divide by 100. So I'll show you the same question I did before, but using the 1% on your calculator hack. Okay. So to find 1%, if I want to find 42% of £14.72, I would start off with £14.72, and then I divide by 100 to get 1%. This is my 1%. Here it's as a fraction. I can, if I want to, turn it into a decimal, so it makes a little bit more sense to me. So it's around 14 pence. Now, if whatever percentage I want, I times by that. I don't need to type that number again. I can just press times. My calculator will remember it. And in this case, I wanted 42%. So I just write 42 and press equals. It's going to give me a fraction. So again, I turn it into a decimal. Okay. So 2 calculator hacks. You can use the percent button, or you can find 1% first. Right, we're going to end on a little quiz. It's called Would You Rather. You get to choose the blue amount or the red amount. I'm going to give you an amount of money, and you are going to choose which one you would rather. There's 3 questions, and for each one, you just want to choose whether you want blue or red each time. I'm going to give you the 3 questions and some time to do them. Then I'll go through them, and then we'll say our hellos and goodbyes. Okay, so the first one. Would you rather, would help if I could show you all of it, wouldn't it? Would you rather 10% of £40 or 90% of £4? And next question. Would you rather, this is the second one, 5% of £560 or 20% of £150? And the third question. Would you rather 2% of £4,300 or 85% of £105? Okay, again, speed is not essential here. Let's have a little look at each of these. So for the first one, On the blue side, I said 10% of £40. So when we're finding 10%, we want to divide by 10. So you would do 40 divided by 10, which gives us £4 for the blue one. Now, some of you may have spotted straight away that on the red side, I was saying 90% of £4. And because it wasn't 100%, because it was less than that, it was going to be lower. So if you wanted the most money, you would choose blue. If you didn't want the most money, you would choose red. If you did go finding 90% of £4, I personally would have done that by finding 10%. So I would have done £4 divided by 10, which gives me 0.4. And then I would have taken that away from the £4. So I would have done £4, take away £0.4, which is £3.60 in this case. Okay, so I would have chosen blue for the first one. Second one, I asked you, would you prefer 5% of £560 or 20% of £150? So for both of these, I'd have started by finding 10%. So 10% of 560 is going to give me £56. So if I want 5%, I'm going to half that. So 5% is going to be half of this. Half of 50 is 25. Half of 6 is 3. So I add those together to get £28. On the red side, I said, what is 20% of 150? So I would do 10% of 150, which gives me £15. 20% is going to be double that. So I would get £30. So in this case, I'd have chosen the red one because it's more money. And the last one, I'm going to show you with the calculator hacks. So 2% of 4,300. I'll just bring you down so you can see my calculator. So for 2%, I would do 2, and then I will press Shift and my percent button. For of, I press times, and then I'm putting 4,300. Press equals, and that gives me £86. So I want 85% of £105 now then. So I'm going to do that using my 1% method. I'm going to do 105 divided by 100, which gives me 1%. 1% is £1.05. And then I want 85%. So I'm going to times that by 85, which gives me, if I put it into a decimal, £89 and 25 pence. I've forgotten how much we got for the 2% now. What was the 2%? 2% of that one was £86. So I would choose red again. Red was more. So for me, red wins. Okay, so that's the end of today's lesson. If you want to say a hi over on Facebook, there's a little space where I've got like a picture of the start of the lesson, and you can just put a little comment underneath. Don't worry if you don't have Facebook and you can't do that. Hi for you guys being here. I really appreciate you guys being here. I just need to give you my little spiel because I only get paid for these lessons if people support them. So I want to put them out there for free so people can access them, they can try them out, and then hopefully I've made it an affordable amount to support me at £5 or £6 a month. And that's how I get my pay for these. And just for those people paying me as a thank you, I send out my activity pack. So at the moment, that's my fractals activity pack, really cool area of maths that you can explore hands-on and quizzes and engineering tasks in there. You get some really lovely origami paper with that, as well as some funky stickers in the post as a thank you just for supporters. Most people are aware that that is to support the lessons, so that's just a little thank you. It's not paying for the activity packs, it's actually to pay my wage. So super appreciate the people that are able to do that. I'm just going to see if people have managed to say hi. I'm going to head over to Facebook on my phone. I feel really rude being on my phone in the lesson. Like when I was in school, when I worked in schools, like I'd have been like feeling really naughty doing this, like I'm just looking at my phone whilst I'm teaching a lesson. But it's okay here, isn't it? It's okay. Right, I've worked out how to get the newest comments to the top. Oh, awesome! Sam and Co, you're enjoying maths because you could do it in your pajamas, and the dogs can join it too. That is literally our household. If we could do it in our pajamas with dogs, Life is good. Awesome. I'm so pleased for you. Thank you for joining us, guys. Oh, Otis, you'd like to say hi. You were trying to get on through Facebook. Oh man, Otis, it was on YouTube today. If all else fails, go to my events on Facebook and you can find. You could just click on the links and it'll take you straight to them on there. Hopefully you found us. Hopefully you found us, Otis. I really hope so. Okay, I'll do a quick refresh just in case anyone else did comment because I don't like to miss people out. But don't panic if you can't or it's not for you. And if I do miss people, I try my best to say hi later on. It's not always ideal. Okay, newest comments. Oh, Archer! Hi, Archer! Nice to have you here too. Yeah, I think I've got everyone. Oh, it's so nice when I get to say a little hi in the drive. I do love the YouTube ones as well as Facebook ones. Keep them without comments on purpose so people can join these and have a different experience. But yeah, there's something odd about like teaching something, knowing that you're watching, and I'm not able to talk to you. So I like to be able to say the hi at the end and have that interaction. Thank you for joining me at 11:30. I'm going to be doing timelines in Maths and Dinosaurs, my all ages maths lesson. Otherwise, I will be back this time next week. I've forgotten what with off the top of my head right now, but I'll put an advert out for that later on. Bye for now, guys.